welcome to Tone Talks.
What up, y'all? This is attorney Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I want to have a discussion. You're going to frame it around Kendrick Lamar beef with Drake, but it's going to be a larger context. So we're going to frame it around the Kendrick Lamar beef with Drake, but a larger context of what's going on, in my view. You know, this is my opinion. I'm one of the co-founders of ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, led to a national discussion that I think kind of ties into Kendrick and what he's pointing to, and this analysis that I hope that ADOS was going to move to, but we couldn't get past the basics, which is reparations in America should go to American Descendants of Slavery. Let's talk about it. So this is going to be a show. This is going to be our show where we go through a timeline since 2016, 2017, possibly even before that, of how this discussion needs to be had, not just about Drake, but about the answer that I believe white capital has made to deal with never correcting American Descendants of Slavery. And I believe what that answer is to find aberrations or loopholes that then tie into the narrative and play up the worst parts of the race for their own benefit. There is a consequence and a cost of the suffocation of ADOS, meaning all four of your grandparents is ADOS and they never got no loophole. Now, I'm not here for a blackness litmus test, but I am here for an ADOS evaluation. And to explain from what I understand, both in personal life and also professional, I wrote an article, a paper with Duke University professors, what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap. I've written on inequality.org, left-wing think tank, come here with no nonsense. We were covered in the New York Times, meaning the ADOS movement. In 2019, we did a full conference with over 1,000 people present. And I'm saying all this to frame, and also I was nominated for an Emmy on a documentary, Freeway Cracking the System, that covered the Nicaraguans for the first time. They told us that Maxine couldn't find us, John Kerry couldn't find us, but you found us. Blandone said that. Go look him up. So all of this is to frame the discussion we're about to have, because part of what Kendrick is pointing to is y'all fell in love with a Canadian rapper. A Canadian rapper, and as I understand it, the mama is white and Jewish. I don't have no problem with Jewish people, but the mama white and Jewish, and he decided to become a buffoonish characterization of black folks, and we accepted it under the premise and the understanding that he got an ADOS daddy, as if that cleaned it all up. He from Canada, y'all. I wrote a piece in All Hip Hop nearly 10 years ago now, Drakeism and Our Emotional Breakdown, talking about what I initially saw, which is some significant issues with this man. It ain't just Drake. That's why Kendrick is resonating. I believe that this is bigger than just a rap battle. This ties in to that discussion that ADOS triggered that was necessary, because there's a demarcation, I'll show it to you in a second, when black immigrants got here 20 years after Jim Crow, in any kind of number, Caribbean and also African. Before that, it was negligible, if any. Before 1960, if we go back that far, the amount of black immigrants was to the right of the decimal. That's how small they were. And so what happened is ADOS people suffered the consequence and the cost of American slavery. I'm not saying that people don't have their CARICOM and their other places, but they also suffered Jim Crow. And then they beat the door down, and we started having white capital say, we can't deal with them people who really suffering and suffocated. They too angry. Let us find an aberration. Can I talk today? They went out to Canada to find a rapper. They went to Haiti to find the press secretary. They went to Kenya and Hawaii to find the president. They went to India and Jamaica to find the vice president. And then they said, no, y'all can't come up with ADOS. And they got Nikole Hannah Jones to do another damn story when it was already in the Times. We'll talk about that. Don't make no sense that girl wrote that paper. ADOS, let's take the A off and just call it DOS and say the same thing. Can we talk? Y'all will understand what I mean in a second. The results are in. Kendrick Lamar won. I agree. Let's just Drake, bow out. Well, you know, you ain't the one. That's what Rolling Stone found. You can have your own opinion, but I'm not here to gauge necessarily a rap battle. I am here for a culturally nuanced discussion that moves beyond a blackness litmus test into a question why they ain't looking for ADOS black folks that got them 4 grandparents. Talk about it. They out here finding loopholes. We gonna go through it today. I'm on my K-Dot. Hey, y'all, can I be on my K-Dot today? They crip walking. So what America is doing is taking a little sugar, a little spice. If you got some sugar and some spice, we make you successful because we ain't got to deal with all that spice straight up. All that ADOS. Drake asked Canada to expand its territory so his friends don't have to travel internationally in order to attend his shows. Oh, he thought this was funny. All right. Can I talk about it? Can I slow it down today? Can I bring it to a larger discussion that there's a political movement that has asked the U.S. government, the Office of Managing Budget, to add an ADOS category? Nikole Hannah Jones wasn't around for that. She just want to write the story and get the publisher or whatever she gonna get. We need people that are on the ground doing the politics to make it real, not just people trying to eat and do grills. What she do? What you talking about, Tom? What she do? We not trying to do that. We trying to actually move the ball, change things as the Supreme Court when we put people on those steps and the NAACP left. ADOS. And she trying to do this. Aubrey Drake Graham, known mononymously as Drake, is a Canadian rapper, singer, and actor. I told you that when I first heard him. He sounded like he took Southern slang, mixed it with some Caribbean sound, and came up with his own dialect, and y'all loved it because it's sugar and spice. You don't want to deal with just that spice straight up. Can I get on my K-Dot today? I'm not here for no light discussion today. We having the heavy one and asking the question, do people come here as the garbage compactor? Do they come here to drop their trash off? Is this the place, meaning ADOS folks, where you got the sugar and spice and you put all the mess in us? Y'all remember when Tiffany Haddish had the chicken and the funky pimp hat, but when it was time to be Eritrean, she had the gala gown on. Montreal dragged into Drake, Kendrick Lamar rap. Please, look, support this channel because when I do these shows, they don't monetize like that. I need you to support Super Chat or Patreon Tone Talks, or go to Cash Out Tone Talks or ToneTalks.net. Find your mechanism, support this channel, share this video. Also support the ADOS Foundation. They're doing the politics while other people writing the articles that already got written in the New York Times again and saying, I didn't know. Cali House wasn't talking about this. Because this isn't just a reparations discussion. It's a lineal one. How would they? There was barely any black immigrants here. That's your argument. You don't understand the topic. But this is the buffoonism. It is the characterization of ADOS. But they both got ADOS parents, Tone. I'm not having a genetic discussion right now. I am having a discussion about the performative element of using the idea of ADOS to access an idea of struggle. Can we get to it? It's a lot of people out here doing too much with them good parents. I just did the Issa Rae show, so I'm going to touch her, but go back and watch that show to get a full idea. But this is the performance of the idea of the trash compactor part of ADOS in my view. You can have your own. You use this to make you feel strong like you hood. You have an Issa Rae crip walking when she was not here for the LA riots. Telling you straight, there is a generation of ADOS around my age living in Los Angeles, and they mama and daddy wouldn't let them on what we used to call the RTD. They didn't let them on the bus. Does the bus make you black? No. But not going to Senegal make you goddamn ADOS and understand the struggle and the suffocation of it all. So I'll read in a second how her mama ran to Senegal, skipped Louisiana. She didn't build up LA. She wasn't doing no ADOS politics for ADOS folks. And I'm not dealing with whether her mama taught at the wash house. I saw that. wash prep. I'm dealing with how do you get to that choice? Can we get on our K-Dot while your daughter out here crib walking and don't know nothing about the RTD? That's what it was called before it was. Before what it was. But we out here with the grill zone. I'm on my K-Dot today. And then when we say something, you say, are you saying I'm not black enough to? Yes, I'm saying that this is some goddamn buffoonery. This is all buffoonery by people that come from privilege. What you mean? We'll talk about it. I'm on my K-Dot today. 310-388-3499. I want to hear from you. We're going to have this discussion. I want to frame why this is resonating. I want to frame and make sure everybody understands that there's an American descendant of slavery discussion that was triggered by two intellects, myself and Yvette Carnell. Shout out to Howard. I went to UCLA, the top public university in the nation. And I want you to understand what has happened here is folks know that there is a ball of I guess you could say content creation or American value inside of the struggle that is ADOS. So what you do is play down and call it sugar and spice, one side each kind of bullshit. But you don't tell us what it is to leave to Senegal when black folks hadn't even been out the country, or some not even on a plane. Or you don't tell us how you wasn't here for the riots, but you want a crib walk. How your mama and daddy said that you can't be on that RTD. It's too dangerous. You can't go past Western. But this is triggered out of and reflected most in Barack Obama. Kenyan and white, raised in Hawaii. But because he married to Michelle, he's the same as us. I'll show you in a second how his white grandma left him nearly $500,000. Nearly $500,000 in stock. There might not be 1,000 ADOS out of 50 million that will ever see that kind of inheritance. But then the way he traps you isn't through giving you policy. He said no to reparations. Remember Ta-Nehisi Coates' piece? The way he traps you is to bring hip-hop stars down to the White House and let them stand around him in the White House. The performative elements of blackness. They ain't gonna bring no Yvette and Tone. They might really show that I ain't doing nothing for black people. In 2008, the United States saw its highest voter turnout in young voters for the first time in 35 years. Celebrities of different statuses and backgrounds banded together to help campaign for the first black president. All right. And we have Ta-Nehisi Coates as Obama is leaving office. Do a piece. My president was black. Again, I'm framing the larger narrative around this Drake Kendrick thing that is leading it to resonate, in my view, to a much larger scale than a hip-hop rap battle. It is a question of why are we letting the sugar and spice folks buffoon around on ADOS, give us no policy, support no politics, give us no change, and then the white folks can use them because they got a white mama to feel like somebody else in the room, but they act just like them because they mama white. Can we talk? Make them feel real comfortable. The whole point is to get us in the room. Oh, so we doing the hairpins and the grill. We doing the crip walk. This ain't just about color, because she brown. They done skinnied her up and she out here. She gonna do everything she can to make the quote unquote boule of Black America feel like, oh, you can take your own hip hop too. And you got the bottoms too. I'm on my K-Dot today. I want to frame this because we got to look back to this article to frame how Black America doesn't get it all. How ADOS Black America, before me and Yvette brought about the national discussion. Remember when Tariq said we was godsends before the FBA thing and was hollering ADOS? Him too, he was hollering ADOS, yes. No about no FBA. That's not a right term. You got to say American descendants of slavery to make it clear. It's like Nike and the logo. You don't separate it till everybody is really branded on the concept. College. The farewell party presented by BET. All right, so the guy that gave us no politics is getting a farewell party on the black-owned TV station, or the black TV station, because I think we had sold it by then. Was the last in a series of concerts the first couple had hosted at the White House. Guests were asked to arrive at 5:30 p.m. By 6. Two long lines stretched behind the Treasury building where the Secret Service was checking names. The people in these lines were in the main black, and their humor reflected it. We gonna joke around when he ain't give us no reparations. He ain't did no policy for us. He told us that we gonna be all right. He saved the white folks, let our houses be stolen out from under us. And we gonna laugh with him while he inherited $500,000 from a white woman that we don't know if that came from some racism. He fine. He don't need no reparation. The briskier Q was dubbed the good hairline. This is the performative element. So people are coming from two parents, particularly when one parent is white, and they're using this performative element of the 60s rhetoric, the 50s and the 30s rhetoric to make themselves feel more blacker, quote unquote, because they feel like we put them on the outside. All right. Stop doing this and we ain't gonna put you on the outside. We don't need this. This is what she responded with. I'll show you in a second. When a white conservative came to her about her 1619. All right, we're going to talk about that granddaddy in a second. Did he leave you some inheritance? I would love to hear about that. I don't want to hear about no touch and feel. I want to hear, when we talk about family trees, when we talk about wealth, we're talking about gifts and inheritance. If your white granddaddy is Republican, come on, and you admitted that, and he part of the clubs or whatever organizations, the unions, and then he die and he leave you that part of that house just like your white cousins. Did you put that in the 1619? I want to know about that. By one guest, and there was laughter at the prospect of the Secret Service subjecting us all to a brown paper bag test. They did not come to pass, but security was tight. Several guests were told to stand in a makeshift pen and wait to have their background checked. 310-388-3499. The ties between Obama White House and the hip-hop community are genuine. Okay. Did anybody see if Jay-Z got any government contracts for knowing Obama? Oh, maybe he can't pass because he selling drugs and he's a dropout. Did anybody see any kind of train of political movement, political people that came after Obama that were ADOS? Everybody at MSNBC gone. Everybody. Melissa Harris Perry, all of them. The Obamas are social with Beyonce and Jay-Z. They hosted Chance the Rapper and Frank Ocean at a state dinner, and last year invited Swiss Beats, Buster. This is what makes, he is the president of America, and we talking about him like he an owner of a rap label. Lucius. He Lucius Lyon. He invited him down. But it got real interesting, and this is the framework that I just think about what Kendrick Lamar is saying about Drake. When it's time to get to the meat and potatoes, oh, he ain't got nothing for us. Obama had been on record as opposing reparations. I don't need no man who was elected by ADOS folks, because we put him in office. We turned out, we turned states, we put him in office. You don't believe that? Then maybe you need to check your mind. Obama had been on record as opposing reparations, but now late in his presidency, he seemed more open to the idea, in theory. I don't need you to write that, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't need you to save this man. I don't need on his last day for him to say, I think about reparations. Go on and hold that L. Here go this. My president was black. A history of the first African-American White House. The White House is not defined by the first lady. It's defined by the president. And he's not African-American, Ta-Nehisi. He is Kenyan-American. There is a difference. And that is the importance of the Office of Management Budget giving us our category that they chose not to give us. And Nikole Hannah Jones was not part of the discussion to help put pressure on them. She had no idea this was going on, in my belief. I'd love to see her submission to the office, because I did mine. I can pull it up. Meaning the Office of Management Budget by the government that the census uses, and they use to come up with MENA, the new category, Middle Eastern, North African. That category was created, but not category for ADOS, even if it's called something else. We just out here floating. And the sugar and spice folk get to benefit because you was in Dakar, Senegal during the riots. Or your white granddaddy that was a Republican is going to let you access the privileges of whiteness through gifts and inheritance, and you ain't going to put that in that 1619. Can we talk about it? And that is what Kendrick is saying when he says that the man is from Canada and from a white mama. The political problems with turning the argument for reparations into reality are manifold. So we already talking about the problems. I don't need to know the problems. I put you in office. Fix it. Fix it. You don't tell no white Republican. You ain't gonna tell Nikole Hannah Jones granddaddy that stuff. Don't tell us that stuff. You figure it out. If you look at countries like South Africa, where you had a black majority, there have been efforts to tax and help that black majority, but it hasn't come in the form of formal reparations program. Look, I don't know what this man been selling you. I know that I was in South Africa, and I'm gonna tell you the maddest person I met in my whole trip. It was a white man that was he was almost like a servant. He was like a housemaid kind of guy, and he was mad because they took his land and gave it back to black folks. And he said they didn't know how to sow the land or till the land, and he knew better. But I know something happened that didn't happen here. Huh? Ooh, can we get to it? Can I talk about it today? Can I make the larger discussion around Drake, around Kendrick, and bring it out to Obama? Because y'all showed Obama, he picked Kendrick. Issa, bring it out to Nikole Hannah Jones. Bring it out to Drake when he got the Jerry curl. Did they put that in your hair the same way I saw a Korean getting it put in? They had to do some kind of twisty stuff. You out here buffooning black folk. That is what K is talking about. And we've been allowing it because there is a part of Black America that is too loud because they are the most educated and they have the most privilege, and white folks let them in the room that are talking for the general body of a struggling, collapsed ADOS that have my parents and my grandparents and my grandparents' grandparents on both sides. I want to talk. I want to talk today. The political problem with turning the argument for reparations to reality are manifold. Obama said, if you look at countries like South Africa, where you had a black majority, there have been efforts to tax and help that black majority, but it hasn't come in the form of formal reparations program. You have countries like India. Why are we talking about India and America? This is the first world country. Developing countries, I don't want to hear about that. I don't even understand why he would bring these examples up. We're in America. You owe me trillions. Figure it out. You have countries like India that have tried to help untouchables with untouchables are not ADOS. It's a very different dynamic. They got to figure out their own struggle. They did not build this place the way that we built this place that became the richest place in the history of the world. I showed it in Rise of Legacy. Like literally, I think like 60% of the wealthiest people ever came out of this country. What are we talking about with India? Do you not know? And Ta-Nehisi didn't even shut him down. I don't want to hear about India. Please focus on America. You have countries like India that have tried to help untouchables with essentially affirmative action programs, but it hasn't fundamentally changed the structure of their society. So the bottom line is that it's hard to find a model in which you can practically administer and sustain political support for these kind of efforts. Okay. Obama went on to say that it would be better and more realistic to get the country to rally behind a robust liberal agenda. He didn't say that when his grandmama left him that $500,000. Obama's grandmother, Madeline Dunham, left him stock in the Bank of Hawaii valued at almost $500,000 at the time of her death. Screen, so you can understand how crazy it is for people who have a white line to tell us anything about this whole narrative, because without telling us the full truth, because we wouldn't even know this if he didn't deliver it in the document. He would just be quiet about it. So throughout his time in Chicago, he's getting gifts. He went to the Pune High School, and the grandparents are paying. Nikole Hannah Jones, what's your story? Put that in the New York in the 1619. Tell us the whole truth about the gifts and the advantages and the privileges. But we can't ask for that. Barack Obama inherited $500,000 while in the White House, but the value of the stock plunged rapidly. In a world where only 5% of African American households have more than $350,000 in net worth. So when we talk about this thing and we start to ask the question, putting celebrity aside, all them little basketball players they keep showing on TV to mesmerize you with the decadent veil, what we're seeing is that there is an advantage and a privilege when you are not suffocated by the full cost of ADOS that white capital is seeking out and asking to come into the room and speak for all of the struggling ADOS without the energy or the politics. Where was you at, Nikole Hannah Jones, when we was talking about the OMB or on the Supreme Court steps? The misadventures of Issa Rae. 4 years ago, the comedian's YouTube series went viral. This is 2015. This is how they introduced us to her. And when they introduced us to her, I read this whole thing in the last show. Listen to this part. The family fell into exceptionally average life. They met in France. The daddy a pediatrician. They moved to Dakar, Senegal, and they fell into an average life. From almost the majority, and that's much higher than 51%, of ADOS in the 80s hadn't even left America. Some hadn't even been on a plane. The family fell into an exceptionally average life until escalating gang violence unnerved Ray's mother. She insisted that the family relocate to Senegal. Y'all telling me about Louisiana, and they skipped Louisiana, Atlanta, everything else, and they ran to Senegal. Issa's like 2-3 years old. They ran to Senegal, and the daddy says living in Africa, the continent, would instill his children with discipline and respect for their heritage. They can't get that in LA. This that sugar and spice, people. And now what we have is that's who's going to speak for us and give us the show while she crip walk. Part of what we're seeing with this discussion is we don't understand family trees, because these shows and these, you know, you had the Lions, and meaning you remember the whole show on Fox, Lucius Lion and them. You had Cookie Lion and all this money falling out. But in reality, what happens is that white line in 2024 may advantage you in such a way where your privilege basically gives you access to being white. You don't tell nobody, and what you do instead is put a grill in your mouth. Come on. Can I go on my K-Dot today? I want to know what they inherited. I want to know what Kamala inherited from the mama. I want to know what Nikole Hannah Jones inherited from the granddaddy and what kind of gifts she got throughout life. I want to know what Drake is getting from his mama. Who paid for the first ticket to get down to America? $500,000 from this white grandmama. We not even dealing with the fact that she had this job at a time when black women couldn't get this job. Can we talk? Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Mr. Antonio? This is Christian Mosley from Fayetteville, North Carolina. How you doing, sir?
Give me your take on it. I'm tying it all together, making it a bigger narrative so that we can talk about why this is resonating. In my view, we got the sugar and spice folk, and that's the new answer in America, because ADOS folk ain't got nothing, and they don't want to give us the data. That's why they didn't do the OMB. The civil rights orgs objected to us even being a category, because once you get that category, you're going to find out, like here in Los Angeles, that the middle black family only worth $200 liquid, and y'all going to get too frustrated. Go ahead. Y'all need that Drake.
You're absolutely, you 110% right, because this is I think the phenomenon between the Kendrick and Drake beef is showing really a much larger phenomenon that you and Mr. Ben have been pointing out for well over a decade now, about how this phenomenon has real life consequences. So Drake being able to be from Canada, raised by a white mother, and live that lifestyle, only to, want to have this relationship with his dad all public, click
It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Well, it kind of, let me tell you what made it rocket science is that nobody knows information. Like Nikole Hannah Jones, she didn't know. I'll show you in a second what she tweeted when we initially had Philly Inquirer do an article saying we don't care that she's looks black. We want some ADOS politics. She said you have a black litmus test. Now we doing articles like we understand, but we already was in the New York Times. Well, I'll show in a second. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Absolutely. Okay, hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
So yeah, I think just the title, and it's interesting because I was also a part of some of the folks that were putting in for the OMB, and even had my own story to tell in there about my family, doing some real political work that was organized by you all. But I think or at least the last thing I wanted to leave off is that it's interesting that one of the things that you pointed out that people do often, that's pointed this out, is that oftentimes in moments like this, people have the wrong conversation, and that this is a very sensational moment, but they're having the wrong conversation, which is this is about either purely platonic stuff or maybe colorism, but not talking about the cost of having our heritage in this nation and not being repaired. And the fact that the data does not get updated on purpose for us. Because I've even looked back at some of the data that you pulled from 2016 and saying that there are certain updates we don't get for a reason because we're on ice skates right now. And if people knew the type of danger that we are currently in, this free fall, if there would be a massive outcry, just morally, just for there to be some sort of repair.
Well, right now we had a black president. Thank you so much. So like we don't need no repair. Y'all ain't happy with a Kenyan man that was white that became president? Well, then I don't know. Y'all voted for him. That's what they feel like. Y'all ain't happy with this? She got a Pulitzer and this man got Grammys. Y'all ain't happy? Y'all ain't happy with her? She crip walking. Ain't that good enough for you? She hood. She wasn't here for the riots. Probably never got on the RTD. The mama ran to Senegal. And y'all don't know what's going on? Somebody would say, are you saying that you got to struggle to be black? We're not having that discussion. What we're having is a nuanced discussion about being authentic. Authentically from Dakar, Senegal, or Potomac, Maryland. Authentically talking the truth about what it is to have a white parent in your life that went to the Rotary Club. Or that's a Republican and has all the friends and the access to the unions and the clubs and the church and the scholarships that come out of the white church for you. We couldn't even get there with ADOS because we got stopped off on some nonsense about being African, or I don't know what these people was talking about. I'm on my K-Dot today. So again, Obama inherited $500,000 from the white grandma in a time when Black American households, only 5% were worth $350 net, not liquid. That's liquid money he received. He ain't got to sell no house or nothing. I'm having this discussion, 310-388-3499. Thank you so much for calling as you call. Because we have an Issa Rae who didn't just move to any Senegal. She moved, and somebody actually said it, didn't realize Dakar is sea-facing, where she had a maid in the house in the context of Senegalese maids. And as I read stories about it, it's highly oppressive. So you got a maid, so your mama ran where the maid is at. Okay. Senegal, and we ain't going to talk about none of that. You come back and... But when the riots was going on, you wasn't here. RTD, no riots, but you gonna tell the story. I want to have this discussion because nobody is connecting these dots. Nobody is talking about this RTD bus before it was called Metro. Nobody is asking the question, did she just take the palm trees out and stick them on? Stick. What part of this is true? We got Kamala saying that she smoked in college while listening to Tupac around the 38-minute mark on the Breakfast Club. You remember that? And the Jamaicans, because you don't really see Jamaicans coming out for her like that. We never see the dad really. What's going on? Since that's the access way to not be Indian, be black. Around the 38-minute mark, another of the show hosts, DJ Envy, asked, "What does Kamala Harris listening to?" Before Harris could answer, Charlamagne the God interjected and asked her what she listened to while she smoked in college, because they had just giggled about smoking weed. "What were you listening to when you was high?" Charlamagne the God said. "What was on? What song was on?" Then DJ Envy said, "Was it Snoop?" "Oh yeah, definitely Snoop," Harris said. "Tupac for sure. We are going to do the performative elements of ADOS, of hip-hop blackness, as a way to get that black vote. But we're not going to do that here. We got our outfit on. We respectful and all that when we Indian. He ain't going to go for it. Talk about that weed if you want to. Talk about that weed in front of him. I want to talk. I want to get to the reality of the sugar and spice people that are a mix of Jamaican and Indian, or Kenyan and white, or Canadian and ADOS, and just a mix of things. Because the mix is how they are answering for not giving you reparations. We find aberrations that grew up in Senegal, or flew out to India in the 70s like Kamala did, or lived like Obama did in Asia in the 70s, and we bring them in the room because they're not frustrated like Tone is. Somebody called it a buffer cast. You had a Kamala that I interviewed, this woman, Issa Rae Peoples, who, while trying to play to the black vote, was really more right-wing than anything, and still, to me, in many ways is. But the human cost of Kamala Harris' war on truancy. This ain't a game. This ain't a game. I interviewed her. They brought her out in handcuffs under policy that Kamala Harris set up. The same Kamala that had black men fighting fires that should have been out and released from prison for free down there, or low wages. The same Kamala that talked about she rode the bus that integrated and all this. Thank you so much, Spiritual Winds. I'm having this discussion because as we look at what Kendrick is tapping on, he is tapping on a question, not of whether you black enough, but why you keep buffooning black folks to sell records. Because what's happening, let me make it clear for everybody. We don't accept white folks doing this. So what white folks do is get a proxy. They get a black person that'll do this, that then comes in the room and talks to them like this right here and says, they get a black person in the room that grew up in actually Potomac, Maryland. And then we allow the black person to do the stuff that white people want to do, and they laugh about it. And it is that Kendrick is tapping on. Can I get on my K-Dot today? Can I get on my K-Dot today? I ain't trying to hurt no feeling. I'm just trying to crush them all. So, you in church today. I know a lot of people, there's 1,000 people in here. You ain't got to call, what else you say? It's okay. I know it's tough. I know it's tough to hear Obama say he don't care about no reparations. He got his reparation. He got $500,000 from the grandma. And that's not all he got. He's sitting up in Chicago, about my same age as my daddy, and he getting hundreds of dollars in the damn 80s. Shit, this is a whole fucking white privilege he accessing. And that is the question that I needed from Nikole Hannah Jones. Did you inherit from the white granddaddy? And if so, what did you inherit? Put that in the 1619. I feel guilty having inherited from this line, knowing that's an article. I don't want to hear about no sugar and spice stuff. I want to hear Issa Rae talk to me how she gonna write about LA if she wasn't here for the riots. They struggling today. I'm knocking down heroes. They got their outfit on when it's time. So when it's time, you got your outfit on. You respectful. All right. But when it's time to do black folks, we putting them in prison, and we for truancy. That ain't even real. The lady daughter was sick. This is Kamala's policy. So when somebody came out with a white conservative answer to 1619, and her answer was to say, and you can't find the tweet, that it's hard to find it. At least I couldn't find it. I want to say that this is my response to the 1776 project. If you zoom in, you kind of see it. And then she put this up. Okay. Yeah, that's real fucking cute. Then you got Tiffany Haddish. When it's time to be ADOS, she got the chicken at the Met Gala. But when she Eritrean, she got the Princess Zyria gown. The Zyria gown that looks very, very respectable. We come back to Issa Rae's daddy saying what? What did he say again? Let's go back, because this is the crux of it. This is where you come to play when you ADOS. But living in Africa, Ray's father agreed, living in Africa would instill with his children with discipline and respect. All right. So in March of this year, Nikole Hannah Jones wrote an article. I don't feel like people really cared that much, but you know, some people maybe did. But in the article, she made a lot of arguments about ADOS and just took the A off. The colorblindness trap, how a civil rights ideal got hijacked. Okay. Descendants, but did not want the descendants of slavery. Okay. To see that descendants of slavery. In 2019, in 2020, in 2016, me and Yvette Carnell are taking daggers to introduce ADOS to Black America that thinks they flat black. Nikole Hannah Jones is nowhere around. Controversial group ADOS divides Black Americans in fight for economic equality. This is the ABC News story. When we have this article written in February of 2019, at the height of Kamala, they want to launch Kamala on MLK Day. We do this piece, and it causes a stir. It's not whether Kamala Harris is black enough, critics say, and they're talking about myself, Yvette, and our fans from our shows, the show you're watching now. It's not whether Kamala Harris is black enough, critics say, but whether her policies will support Native Black Americans. After we put this piece out, this is what Nikole Hannah Jones says. So we really gonna have a segment of Black folk giving the correct type of blackness litmus test to Kamala Harris, like we did Obama. Critiques that have nothing to do with her politics, but only to do if she is really kind of black. The article talks about policy. But in addition, we are asking a question about the thing that she only got to in March of 2024, but she's putting it in the New York Times magazine, in the New York Times, and we was already in the New York Times. Let me see if I got it in print in 2019. So the concept from her article, let me switch around, is in the New York Times in 2019, both in print and online. It causes a national discussion she's very aware of. We're self-interested. The growing identity debate in Black America, a spirited debate is playing out in Black communities across America over the degree to which identity ought to be defined by heritage, African heritage. Understand, this was so big that the New York Times flew somebody from New York to Louisville for our conference for 9 hours with a photo man in this era of media. They flew a reporter to our conference for 9 hours with a camera. A photographer, a real photographer. That's how they got this photo. We didn't send them that photo. But in March of 2024, she is saying descendants of slavery and descendants of slavery. But when it's time to do the Office of Management Budget, she ain't around. When it's time to stand up to the NAACP, she ain't around. So what she's saying in 2019 after this article comes out on Kamala is, y'all better be quiet because black is flat and black. But she don't know this. that before 1960, there was nearly no black immigrants from the Caribbean is the dashes, and the dots are Africans. And then even if you go to 1980, they really aren't here. Less than 1 million combined. At that time, there's probably 30 million ADOS people. And there's less than, in 1980, 20 years after Jim Crow. They don't really get here till after 1990. That's 30 years after Jim Crow down there, 25 years. So yeah, we talking about it. And I need you to understand it. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling. What's going on?
Give me your take on it, because I don't understand this whole pose with the grill and all that. I think she from Iowa or something. I'm not saying that they don't do this in Iowa, but Lord, this is all this performance.
Unfortunately, it's not just the physical capital that we were exploited for to use to build the company. Now we're being exploited for our cultural capital. And I think, like you said, why don't they make music in Drake's case? Why don't they make, and Nikole Hannah Jones, why doesn't she try to pull from her own life experience to forward herself in her career?
You can't sell that.
Because they know no one's interested in their background. No one's interested in their life story. No one's interested in their background experience. And that's why they cosplay, and that's why they take from the ADOS story, because the ADOS story is the most intriguing story, because we've made such a tremendous progress from slavery.
And also, let me say one more thing. In an individual life, the narrative of an ADOS person that gets a Pulitzer Prize or gets nominated for Emmy is a story of overcoming. I overcame though, sweetheart. Like meaning my mama and my daddy had me at 16 and was never together. Meaning my grandmama, my mama and my daddy didn't even know they daddies. Meaning that I'm dealing with the suffocation of being ADOS. I don't got no white granddaddy that was a Republican. And I'm not saying that don't make her genetically ADOS. And I'm not saying she can't speak for her idea of being ADOS. But I'm saying white capital is seeking these people out and elevating them and then making us take the daggers for telling y'all the truth about the wealth. Who told you first about the wealth gap? Ask yourself. Go ahead.
Well, I believe it's also white capital that allows them to do these things. Because if they came from a background that where they didn't have that excess money, they might have had to do like actual jobs. Like they might not have been in the economic.
Let me explain. Let me explain to that point. Let's slow this down a bit about what I'm saying. So what people got to understand is you don't need 4 grandparents that's white. You only needed 1. So what's happening is if you have a white granddaddy that has a $800,000 house, or for that matter, like Obama, he got the white grandmama. Do he need 3 more? Do he need the other side to be white? No. If they give him the privileges and advantages of all of the access that white folks got from stealing from black folks, what's the goddamn difference? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the case of Drake, again, also it's not just what we see here, but that's also what we see on everyday jobs. Like there's a gatekeeping on everyday jobs to block the true narrative, the true ADOS narrative, from being even explored. Like a lot of these DEI committees, a lot of these organizations, that corporations that focus on diversity in terms of African Americans. A lot of those people are gatekept by people that came up in the suburbs, people that are biracial, people that are white adjacent, and don't come from that full ADOS experience. And we see that with Nikole Hannah Jones trying to block ADOS from telling the real story. Because if ADOS gets to tell the real
I mean, let me jump in here because I don't understand how the New York Times, like a lot of times what happens with ADOS people is you don't have an event in Antonio. Because like honestly, like you get people that have went through extreme costs. Because like my natural life where it leads to is like in this moment, Uber driving, prison, even homelessness. So that person's so frustrated, they speaking and stuff, so they can't get in the Times. When the lady came and asked me for the Times article, you know, she asked me if I think it was had I been to jail before? It was like, wow, not Nikole Hannah Jones, the one that wrote the story. So like what's happening there is I'm putting my ass on the line for you. And what happens is this motherfucking lady, what she does is basically we already in the Times because me and Yvette put ourselves on the line. So we don't need, and this what she do, look, once you have this, I'm sorry, caller. Once you have this, you can't come back in the Times 5 years later and say nearly the same thing. It don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. And I don't know how that happened, but I know that black folks didn't respond. ADOS black folks did not respond accordingly. Any last thing you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, real quick. Okay, so I was actually part of the DEI discussion at my job. And one of the things I said, well, we don't have diversity because if you have a sneaker collection and you have Air Force Ones in different colors, you can't say you have a diverse sneaker collection. You have to have different sneakers that you have a diverse sneaker collection. You can't just have. So my point was that if you have diversity, but all the people who represent diversity come from the same background, same life experience, then it's not truly diversity. And a black woman said, well, because, you know, she was trying to minimize what I'm saying. So she said, well, you know, there's no arbiter of who's black and who's not. And I said, well, there's no arbiter, but there is, going back to, you know, ADOS and what you and Yvette put out there. I said, there's no arbiter, but there is census data that can give you a background on how the majority of black people live in this country. So you can't make a determination if a black person comes from a shared experience or is an albatross, in the words you got.
All right, man. Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. And so what I'm having a discussion about is to frame this negative, this because it also is the idea of like being honest about how people just didn't understand what we was talking about, and then you learn the stuff because it was in the Times, and you said it that you didn't understand because this shows you didn't understand this. Meaning the census numbers. We're saying that people that was here after 1970 and 80 and also didn't suffer through the cost of American descendant of slavery, bearing the cost building this place, are vastly different. That's not even rocket science. But you got her, and I'm framing her in context of Drake. I'm framing Issa Rae. I'm framing Kamala. I'm framing Obama. I'm framing Tiffany Haddish. And I don't want to read this whole thing, but Nikole Hannah Jones keeps her eye on the prize. It's a Vanity Fair article, but it frames some interesting stuff. Listen to this part. She's talking about, I believe, her white grandfather. I have a very close relationship with my mom. The mom is white. Now, I don't have no problem with white folks. I want y'all to think that that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you what is happening in this era is that America is seeking out aberrations and sugar and spice because they don't want to deal with us. In my view, I have a very close relationship with my mom, despite my grandparents being conservative, rural, white people who liked Ronald Reagan and were vehemently opposed to Obama. There is a benefit of being attached to that. There's plenty of white liberals today that have a white parent, that white grandparent that did the same thing. What happens is you get to have your left politics and still benefit from the expressive cost of racism against black folks in your life, from college paid, from little gifts all throughout the year, paying for soccer practice. You get to access white privilege. I want to hear about that from you. How did you access white privilege? Because at some point, just like Obama's $400,000, your access to white privilege makes you such an aberration, you damn sure shouldn't be speaking for us. And that's my view. You know, everybody got their own. instead of this whole sugar and spice that she wrote. When my grandfather, Joseph Novatini, was born, he was designated male and white. So we got to hear about gender because that's what we plan. So when my Arlena Tillman is my grandmother's side on my father's side, and she was born, so sugar and spice is the answer. All you need is one person at that Rotary Club that was part of that union that locked out black folk. That union led to him getting that house in that white neighborhood, and then when he died, he leave it in part to you. He don't say, you black, you don't get it. If he did, that should have been in 1619. But if he didn't, and you and all your cousins got the same share, how that fit in this story? It's time to tell the truth, because I know March 2024 don't make no sense to be making this argument when the New York Times already put us in there in 2019 saying the same thing more explicitly clear, and when you ain't part of the politics. Yvette said it. Understand in 2019, Nikole Hannah Jones didn't even understand the importance of lineage. So we really going to have a segment of black folks giving the correct type of black litmus test while Tone Talks and I were advocating for lineage. And then we took daggers from the top of America. So when you ask how, this is the top of America. They put out a paper saying Yvette didn't talk about COVID. I was the first black folk in America, really, on YouTube. You can go Google it, that took on COVID seriously. And there was a big chance that they would ban my channel. But I knew y'all needed toilet tissue and water. Then they turned around and said, we didn't talk about COVID. And then they said we misinformation. And Harvard, once everything got laid out, had to retract the paper. Those are the daggers that came out of, in my view, doing this. She didn't take no daggers. She coming in after all this, the dust is settling, and say, I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna clear it up. It's already clear. It was already in the same paper. I need you to talk. And don't tell me nothing about nothing. I didn't put this man's name out. This was in the NPR story. Don't tell me nothing. I'm not arguing with y'all. Talking points is the right phrase because they didn't invent any of this. Did not do original research or theory. How are you saying that? What are you talking about? That's why your reporter came. When you talk, let me be clear how ignorant this woman has been. When you talk about Cali House or things like that, it is way before this when there's mass immigration here. They are talking about reparations, but in the context of Americans, like AUS being the whole population. When you talk about narking them, they not even saying what we saying. They talking about global reparations and reparations for African descent people. So they not talking about what we saying. What we're saying is original concept. Now, the beginnings of it, the seedlings, you saw with King talking about the slave, the descendant of the slave. But because there wasn't mass immigration until after King dies, even he isn't talking about the nuance and in-depth discussion we're saying because he couldn't have foreseen Obama. But you gonna tell us that we didn't have no original concept. But the Times sent somebody for 8 hours down to our conference and we had 1,000 people in there. And then what happens is Peter got to sit it out, and you're going to laugh, but you don't sit it out too. So, colonizer, but then you got a white grandmama, and somebody could say, well, that my shit way back. I'm talking about way back. Got to go back 4-5 generations. Yours is right here, and you get the privilege and the wealth from all of the Republican Rotary Club, whatever else, white church, right here like a white person, and then you gonna laugh like Peter is the one that's on the outside. Again, there was a mass discussion last year about the disaggregation for data purposes, asking and demanding that the census break out ADOS and actually call us ADOS. You can be another term, but there need to be something. And they said they don't want to do that. And part of the reason that they don't want to do that is because of the black orgs. The same black orgs that when Byron was fighting the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the one that Nikole spoke on all the wrong ways, Nikole Hannah Jones, the one that could have led to massive change in how black people got to prove up cases. I'm going to leave it at that. The NAACP was there on November 12th, 2019. But when November 13th, 2019 happened, they was gone. Who told y'all to leave? And Nikole wasn't speaking about it, wasn't helping, wasn't doing nothing. Oh, that's too hot a topic. That's how you get daggers. You can't get no Pulitzer that way. All right. So then when the OMB comes out, you have the ADOS Foundation, shout out Yvette Carnell. Today, the White House Office of Management Budget, OMB, announced the results of their formal review of how federal agencies collect and report on data and race and ethnicity. We at the ADOS Foundation and ADOS Empowerment Project are deeply disappointed with the OMB's notice of decision. In that decision, they said we're going to recognize MENA, Middle Eastern North African. It's a smaller group. But we're not doing nothing for y'all. Y'all just black African American. And part of the reason we're not going to do it is your orgs told us that they don't want no category. No. Though the majority of the public input on the subject expressed support for adding a category, this is the exact text, or question to identify the citizens of persons enslaved in the U.S., ultimately it was our own civil rights orgs who sold us down the river, advocating for the disaggregation of MENA while arguing against the disaggregation of black. Understand that the NAACP left the steps of the Supreme Court. We talked about it. Did Nikole Hannah Jones? Damn it, did Drake? Or he's so busy rapping, it's just he don't got to talk about it. He just get to eat. You got DJ Vlad. I had to get into it with him and tell him, I'm not that dude. I am not that guy. He ended up blocking me because he said, Tone, you're welcome to come on my show. When I told him, I'm not coming on your show. I don't speak on the Ukrainian war. I don't know enough. What gives you the right to speak about ADOS reparations? I can look at you and tell you don't know enough. And I done heard you talk, you don't know enough. And then you came out that you don't know enough. So why I got to sit with you to find that out? Too many of y'all sitting with this nonsense. You can read the exchange here. It happened like back in 2019. All of us are just talking. No, I'm not just talking. I'm doing the work. I'm doing research papers. Remember when Nikole Hannah Jones said I didn't do no research? Maybe she didn't see what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap, a research project. Maybe she didn't see the inequality.org articles about black wealth. Maybe she didn't see the many videos done. Maybe she didn't see that I talked to the Federal Reserves about wealth data. Okay. And just like this guy, DJ Vlad, who's came out talking about this Drake and Kendrick in all the wrong ways. DJ Vlad, born 1973, is a Ukrainian-American interviewer, journalist, and former DJ. He is the creator of the news website Vlad TV. So this is it. I just want to talk about it. Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.net. Subscribe, donate, and share. I wanted to have this discussion because nobody else is.